Hey, coach, how's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Yeah, so if you're ready, we could just get started with everything.
All right. Let me get my. Yeah, I'm ready.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask you. We'll talk a lot about your coaching career thus far, but I wanted to ask you. You know, this year's kind of been hectic, as we mentioned. I mean, I'm sure you've seen it a bunch of times on the news if you're watching Sports Center stuff. I mean, how's it gonna go for you guys? Just looking forward and keeping the guys in shape to play, not only physically but mentally. Not knowing what's gonna happen.
Yeah, it's an understandable question, and honestly, you and I have the same question. There's way more questions right now for everybody than there are answers. We're obviously in uncharted waters, and we're all having to react to this stuff in real time. And people that are way above my pay grade that are the decision makers um, have the same questions as well. So I don't really have an answer for you. It's going to be a challenge for everybody across the league, um, but we won't have those answers for some time until more information continues to unfold. As it is, it seems like it's a fluid situation that continues to evolve, sometimes almost by the hour.
Yeah, and for you, specifically you and the Bucks thus far. I mean, being in first place, obviously having one of the best records. How are you personally gonna, once you get back on the court, remind the guys, and try to make them realize the season that they've been having, rather than maybe coming out of it a little bit of a funk. I mean, what's it gonna take, for you guys to keep on going with how you've been doing thus far, rather than probably, not knowing what's going to happen, obviously. But when you get back on the court, how are you going to make sure they have the mindset of that they've been having since October, November?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's one of those things where um, just knowing the team and the group and the body of work they've put together all year long, and the spirit and the mentality that they've had from day one of training camp. Um, I don't have any concerns about where they would be, from a mental perspective of trying to get going again. But once again, we're talking about so many unknown things here, and there's just so many hypotheticals. We don't know,
Yeah,
anything right now. How long is this layoff going to be? And we do know that it's going to be a minimum of 30 days, but that doesn't mean it's going to be just that minimum time.
right.
Time. So, um, and then when you come back, what are we coming back to do? I mean, again, there's a million
Yeah.
different iterations of what could happen. So it just makes it a difficult question to answer. Um, Other than what I said, they're
Yeah.
just knowing our group. They've had goals and they've been focused, and I don't think that any kind of interruption will change that mindset.
Yeah, and speaking of, we've been talking a lot about the unknowns. I want to talk about the knowns for you. Talking to other guys, been texting them, in other sports as well. Just seeing, what the status is. If they're going home, if they're keep on practicing. I mean, what are you guys doing right now, with the knowns, and what you're allowed to do? I mean, are you guys practicing still? It looks like you're home right now, or somewhere not at practice. I mean, is it something that you guys are gonna keep in touch on a basis? Are you guys able to practice? I mean, what's it like for you guys thus far, even in these short few days?
Yeah, I think we're all 30 teams are kind of just in a holding pattern right now, at least till Monday,
Okay.
where the league is kind of just giving us some general guidelines maybe of um, just kind of being patient and going slow for a few days while people can kind of try to continue to wrap their minds around what makes sense or what doesn't. Um, so I think a lot of us have taken this first 24 to 48 hours and just tried to take a common sense approach and stay away from our practice gyms and give each other a little bit of space. And my view of it, again, we don't have any concrete action plan in place right now. Um, but it seems to me that once we ride through this weekend, um, people will just have more information and probably a better view of how to approach the situation.
And for you being back in San Antonio, I believe it was 2014 when you guys won the championship. Getting off the track of the coronavirus and everything. Just talking about basketball purely. What do you see in this team? As a coach, when looking back on 2014, any similarities or just kind of the same mental approach? I mean, what do you see in maybe that team looking back in 2014 and this team? I mean, do you see any similarities that maybe can propel them and you guys to a championship if there is one soon?
Well, the common traits that I could see right now is we've got a focused group, that really has a mentality and a mindset to try to achieve something special. Um, so that's one common denominator I can recognize. We have a group that's been very, very much together. They're just tied together, mentally and spiritually, and it's just got it's a team with great energy and great togetherness. Um, which would be another common denominator from the team that you speak of in San Antonio. And probably the last thing I'd point to right now is it's a team with great leadership. Um, you know, just to have leadership from the player side of how we're going to do things and what we're all about, and just kind of that seriousness of purpose and that commitment. You know, is neat to see too.
And for you personally, with your coaching career, I just wanted to take you back and just talk about your own experience. I believe it was in the early to middle '90s you started coaching. I believe it was in college. I mean, what kind of drew you to start coaching? All the way back to the beginning. I mean, was there something that you just loved the game of basketball, and maybe you decided to go to the coaching side when you got to college? I mean, what was it like for you to make the transition? I'm sure you were probably a player before you started coaching. I mean, what was it like for you to start coaching, and what's made you keep on going for this long?
Yeah, I mean, the simplest answer is what you already said. I mean, it was born out of just a love for the game, and I knew from from the time I was graduating from high school that at some point I wanted to be a basketball coach, and my mindset at that point in time could only see so far as being a high school basketball coach. And I don't say that as a way of diminishing or establishing any kind of relevance or importance to what level you coach at. It's just, my mind had never thought about coaching Division I college basketball or coaching in the NBA, of course. I just knew I wanted to coach basketball, and I thought I would probably be a high school coach and maybe a high school English teacher or something like that. But I didn't know that before graduating from high school. And ultimately, any of us that decide to get into coaching or have an avenue into this profession, it always ends up coming when your basketball talent runs out, and
Yeah.
we all run out of that talent at different points in time. Mine ran out early, so I started a coaching career early, and but again, it was all born out of just the love of the game.
And getting that experience, at such a young age, and just looking back on that, how much do you think that's helped you now as open up all these opportunities? Being a young coach, getting the experience from the head coaches. I mean, how much do you think that's benefited you? Starting at such a young age, rather than maybe trying to walk on somewhere. Trying to maybe go overseas professionally for a few years, and stalling your coaching process, and obviously probably halting it, rather than being where you are at now.
Well, I just feel like it just adds to the depth of my experience. I have a lot of different. I've had a lot of rich experiences and very broad, diverse experiences. So it's enhanced my learning because I've gotten to learn from a lot of different great coaches, both the head coaches I've worked for and assistant coaches I've worked with. I've gotten to learn from a lot of players. The things that you do, that you learn from players. And it just means I've had more time on my side and been in more situations. So the well's a little bit deeper in terms of what I can draw from. and that's that's something that I think is valuable.
And going from the coaching side of things, starting off in college and going to professional basketball, what was the toughest transition for you? Whether it was maybe being more tougher on the guys, or trying to be more of a vocal coach. I mean, what was the transition like going from coaching young athletes to coaching professionals on a different level that could range from bigger age gaps, and could have possibly been older than you at some point, being so young when you started.
Well, I think the challenge in coaching at any level, high school, college, pro, is you always have to earn respect from your players, and that's respect isn't given, and so and there's no timeline either on how on when you're going to earn that respect. Whether and it all depends. Earning respect is it's subjective. I mean, it just depends on each player could be different, and the timelines. Some you can do it quickly, and some it takes longer, and all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
the point being, that's always the challenge at any level you coach, and you cannot have success or be effective as a coach, unless you've earn the respect to your players, and respect and trust for that matter. So that's always what it's about, regardless of the level, regardless of any age difference between you and the players you're coaching. Um, you have to achieve that.
And for the on the court stuff, I wanted to ask you, being an assistant coach, and I'm sure, obviously, being on the offensive and defensive side of the ball, I'm sure you're mindful of both sides. But what do you think has led you to this success this far? Whether it's being excellent at one specific thing, teaching guys. I mean, is there anything that you specialize in? Just looking at your coaching career, gaining all this material. I mean, is there something that has drawn you to maybe work on this specific thing with players that's really helped and evolved your own personal career?
Well, I was really fortunate to start this in an era in the NBA where you hear the term or the buzzword even um, everywhere you turn these days. You hear about player development, player development, player
Yeah.
development, player development, and it's all over the place to the point where it almost makes me want to gag once in a while, because it's a little bit um, just it's so liberally used now. I think it's a little bit laughable,
Yeah.
but I started in an era when that phrase didn't even exist. It wouldn't, it wasn't a vocabulary, and I got to start it with who now, and for a long time anyway, has been widely recognized and credited basically as being the godfather of player development, essentially, and that's Tim Gergerich, who's my mentor. I got to start with him in Seattle with the Seattle Sonics, who obviously aren't there any longer. The Oklahoma City Thunder is that team now, but that was my hometown team, and I was 19 years old, and Tim Gergerich was in his first year as an NBA assistant coach after having a long, successful career as a college head coach and assistant coach, and I he took me under his wing, and I got to be have a front row seat and be trained by him in the areas of teaching players, trying to make players better, trying to help them improve their skills, trying to help them add skills, trying to make them better parts of the whole. And so and he was working with a special talent and a special forte for that, um, and working in a manner that NBA coaches weren't working in up until he started to do that. And really what's happened, and we're going back to 1992 here,
Yeah.
training camp in 1992. That's how far this is. Again, an era where those words weren't even vocabulary words, and people weren't doing the things that Coach Gerg was doing. And you fast forward the clock, whatever the math is, all these years later, and now, that's all you hear about, and that's all that gets written about or talked about, and coaches everywhere throughout the profession coaching staffs have swollen in size, and every coach, is out on the floor working and sweating with players, and that's all. It was all born by Coach Gerg. And so I was fortunate, to get back to answering your question, in that became my area of training, and through all these years of not only getting recognized as being trained by the best in the business, but also just building my own experience and trying to find my own voice and build my own skills as a coach. I've developed a reputation along the way of being doing good work in that kind of area, and so that's kind of the thing that I enjoy doing. I love to help players get better. I view all players, as though they can all get better, even all stars, even future Hall of Fame, lock players. I see all players as being able to improve, to strengthen, a weakness, to add a skill, to broaden their game. And I love the teaching element that comes with that, and the work that comes with rolling up your sleeves and just getting in the gym every day and working at the craft.
And, for you, I was going to ask you this question a little bit later, but I wanted to ask you now, since, just talking and, hearing about all the knowledge that you've had, and, going back to 92 when you started coaching, it looks like you've had a lot of assistant coaching jobs. Have you ever thought of maybe going back to college, or even, high school, but probably college with the experience you have, or even the NBA for a head coaching job, really trying to, do that and, see how you can do, being the head man at a job?
Oh, for sure. I mean, most of us as assistant coaches at any level, high school assistant coach, college pro, aspire to have a chance one day to be the leader and to, have their own team, have their own program, and execute, the philosophy that they've learned or believe in, and try it their way. So, I'm no different. I would love to have a shot. I've put a lot of years and work and sweat into the NBA, and would love to have an opportunity to do it at this level. But I would welcome the challenge, in college too. I'm not actively seeking a college opportunity, just because I'm immersed in my NBA career and an NBA, path. But I always say, if the phone rang, you never know who's on the other end of the phone, and you never know what they're calling to ask. But I'm always answering the phone, and I'm always, ears wide open, and have an open mind to any kind of possibility that God may put, in front of me.
And, talking about the locker room stuff, just in terms of, being professionals, being around, professional athletes all the time now, rather than opposed to college athletes. For you, just talking to other guys, mostly in the MLB or the NFL, just hearing how, it's always a business, but, sometimes forgetting that it's a game. How do you keep these guys, focused on the goal of, the team, rather than, focusing on, maybe they're going to be a free agent next year, talking about, looking for a salary, looking for an increase in pay. I mean, how do you keep them focused on, the team aspect of things in the locker room, and making sure they gel on and off the court, rather than, trying to achieve personal goals, which I'm sure gets in the way of the team goal?
Well, it's a great question, and that's always it's always a difficult one to not only answer or explain.
I mean, do you ever see some guys in the locker room who, like, you kind of know, and you kind of try to, take to the side and, just remind them of everything? I mean, how does it go for you, trying to implement that, message and mindset into them if you see them kind of going off trail?
Yeah, well, sure. I mean, those are real challenges across any NBA landscape, or even college basketball. Is you're always navigating the realities that how do you find the healthy balance, the appropriate balance of individual interests or goals with ultimate team interests or goals. And the truth is that they can coexist. It just has to be done in a healthy way and in the right balance. And what you're trying to do is help players that once in a while may be either a little immature or a little misguided, or things may get out of a line a little bit, just realize first and foremost, or remember that if your team goals are your priority, that typically a lot of individual goals or ideals can also be realized subsequently. So that's one of the pieces. But and ironically, sometimes you've got to have some individual goals being accomplished to enhance the team. So it's not just a black and white thing, and again, you just have to make sure that things are in a healthy balance and in the right alignment. But I think that what you're ultimately reliant upon is the strength of character of your of the players you're talking about, and guys that are high character people. There's not a lot that you have to say. They're gonna. It's great to have individual goals, but they know that it is about the team, and it's always it's always about everything that's bigger than yourself. And wanting to be a part of something bigger than just you. And if you have those kind of people in your group, a lot of this stuff ends up taking care of itself.
Now, for you, just looking back, you mentioned a lot about, your young coaching career going back to 92. But looking back then to now on more of the technology aspect of things, and even, just kind of how they, set up a system of a roster, just looking at more of the, you can talk about, the center being, maybe a little more agile than, back in the early 2000s. For you, I mean, how have you seen the game grow, in terms of technology or, evaluating players? Just from your own coaching experience, looking back, I'm sure, the technology's helped you guys tremendously. And, just how you've set up a roster, over the years, I'm sure has changed as well.
Yeah, I kind of hear two separate questions in there, if I understand you right. But so to try to answer one of them about
technology and
I mean, everything's different now. When I started, we were using VCRs, for example, and VHS, and trying to make an edit to show your team was long and slow and arduous and a little bit complicated, but it obviously costs a lot of time. And in this day and age now, of course, everything's on a laptop computer, and which no one had, at that point in time. And everything's digital in terms of the video, and you can get it almost immediately, and you can cut it simply, and like all that kind of stuff. So it makes the work it's much more efficient. It's a lot faster. It's a great tool that's readily available to you in terms of how you help your team or how you help your individual players. So I would say that piece of technology, there's a lot of technology, of course, but that piece of technology has helped a ton. Even staying on the technology piece as far as evaluating players, I mean, being able to get film of players, having the cable TV and the satellite TV and whatever the packages that we all have, whether it's League Pass or grabbing, being able to watch. We can all sit, holding our phones on our hands and being on airplanes or riding on buses or sitting in our living rooms, and you can watch basketball all around the world. Getting on YouTube, whatever. There's technology everywhere where you can get on and actually view basketball players and watch all that you can handle. So there's a lot of radical changes. It's a completely different time and space, and like everything in life, the evolution, and the growth, so often makes things, again, just if not better, at least more efficient. So there's a lot of changes with that. As far as the roster stuff goes, we're in a completely different era in terms of how what you're looking for in terms of the skill sets of players, and how you're trying to play the game, and what kind of players fit into your system, and you've already alluded to it, but we're in an era obviously with so many teams playing 5-out basketball and having centers that are playing out behind the 3-point line, and you're not just going down to the block like Patrick Ewing or Akeem Olajuwon or Shaq or Rick Smits or you name it, and just standing down there and throwing it in and trying to give the guy room to go get a layup or a dunk. You've got these centers that are out there shooting threes, of course, and just playing pick and roll and running dribble handoffs and even quarterbacking the offense like a guy like Jokic in Denver. He's throwing dimes like a point guard to to people running off screens around him or back cutting. And so it's the game in and of itself looks different, and the players that the skill level of the players and the qualities that you're looking for in a player to fit into these systems has changed a little bit.
Cool. And I just wanted to ask you, just a few more questions in terms of, just, kind of 1 or 2 word answers, nothing like big, just for you personally. I wanted to ask you first, where's your favorite city on the road where you guys go that you always look forward to during the season?
Oh, man, I get this question a lot, even just socially with family or friends. I never have a fast answer because there's a lot of them that I love. And I always feel like I'm supposed to have that favorite. But I would say that
top 2, top 3.
I always enjoy going to New York City. I mean, New York's New York. I mean, it's just special, the energy, the buzz in the city, and in particular, having a chance to play a basketball game at Madison Square Garden is always a fascinating experience. I'm a big foodie, so a lot of times I judge the cities based on where I can have a great dinner. I love to have dinner in San Francisco. You can have a great dinner in LA, and you don't mind seeing the beach. So those are a couple of the ones that I enjoy when we get to take a road trip.
What for you is one of your favorite, hobbies, things to do outside of basketball? Obviously, that's a big part of your life. But is there anything else that you look forward to doing, off the court?
I do. I have interests. I'm raising a teenage daughter right now who's 17 years old, so a lot of my time gets spent just being her dad, and whether that means taking her to and from school or taking her to practice for volleyball or lacrosse or going to watch her games, things of that sort actually end up occupying the biggest majority of my social time. But I'm interested in riding mountain bikes, and I've always been avid with motorcycles, both whether it's on the street or, motocross off in the dirt, on tracks, things like that. And I love music. I've got a piano in the house that I don't know how to play, but I think it would be kind of cool if I could ever figure it out. I've got a couple of guitars that I kind of know how to play, but really need to sometime figure out how to get more serious about it and put some time into it. But those are interests of mine that are real.
Is Pink Floyd now your favorite band to listen
No,
to?
you know what? I have appreciation for Pink Floyd, but definitely not my favorite, but just one that's in there that I like, and just happened to get up this morning. I wasn't going to the gym where I was putting on a Bucks t-shirt, and just happened to grab a concert t-shirt. I got 4 or 5 of them in the closet, and this just happened to be what came out today.
And for you, I just wanted to ask you, what's been your favorite moment thus far coaching? Favorite game, favorite moment that maybe you kind of resonates with you a little bit more than the others.
You mean across my whole career? Or are we talking about this season with the Bucks?
We can go this season. Why not? I would have said the whole thing, but this season.
I think we had a 19-game winning streak this year. It was 18 or 19. I already forgot what it was. You'd probably know. But
must have made your job easy.
Yeah, when we were on that run earlier in the year, it's it puts you in a unique company. There's not very many teams that have ever extended a winning streak, to that level. And it's so hard to do because winning an NBA game, no matter how good your team is, winning an NBA game is difficult. And to win whatever we won, again, I already forgot, it was 18 or 19 straight games. That was a fun ride and remarkable.
Final question. I'm sure you get this a lot. How good is Giannis? Just from seeing him every day.
Well, they call him the Greek freak for a reason, because everything that you see him do is freaky. And I thought that when I was a competitor for his, coaching on other sidelines and going against him and things like that. But when you're around him every day and you get to play every single game with him, and you get to see him, behind the closed doors at all the practices, to see the things that he does. Again, I'm in my 24th year in the NBA, so I've never done the math, but I'd love to find out how many players that I've actually gotten to coach over all those years. But I've gotten to coach a ton of all-stars in my time. I've gotten to coach a lot of Hall of Famers, and I've certainly gotten to coach against countless, Hall of Famers in my career. And just to see some of the things he does, I definitely have seen so many things that I have never seen, players do before. He's just got a unique set of gifts and physical and athletic attributes, and it's crazy.
One-on-one in your heyday, how many points do you say in an 11-point game do you put up against them?
Do I put up against who?
Giannis. Maybe like five or six, maybe?
No, I couldn't even get a shot off on him.
All right.
No chance. I couldn't even get a shot off on him.
Not even if he gave you 2 feet of space or anything, or
no, he'd have to give me 10 feet of space. So if he gave me 10 feet of space, I could get a shot off. But you got to realize this guy, his length and his athleticism, and he swallows me alive. I'm so small compared to him, and he makes actual NBA players look like that too.
Awesome. Yeah, so just thanks for coming on, Coach. It was great talking to you. Obviously, you're busy with everything going on and off the court. So just thanks for taking the time to talk to us. Wish you guys the best when you get back on the court. And, just stay safe with all the diseases and stuff going around right now.
I appreciate it. I wish the same for you. It was my pleasure, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Coach. And if you guys win the NBA championship this year, you're going to have to come back on and just tell us about that.
You know where to find me.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Coach.